When I think about awakenings that I've had as a result of the pandemic, one of the things that comes to mind is how critical small businesses are to us. And I don't just mean economically. I think that's relatively obvious, what small businesses mean to our economy, our employment factor, and things like that. But on a deeper level, I see how symbiotic the relationship is between small businesses and our sense of selves, our sense of community. And I think of it a little bit like Sesame Street. The people in your neighborhood that you expect to see in these local businesses, or businesses that even serve businesses that are no longer there or temporarily closed, and how that makes me feel, my sense of security, my sense of self. I don't want to live in a world where we're just dealing with big business. Small businesses are unique, they're individualistic, and they really help make our communities and our lives more interesting. And they're so vulnerable to changes in the environment, to changes in the economy. I didn't realize that, how vulnerable they are. And so my takeaway is small businesses are so important to me. They're also so vulnerable. And so I need to place greater emphasis on making sure that I do things to protect my local small businesses, but also I encourage laws, regulations, systems, economic systems that really are there to support small businesses. Small businesses are really important to us and our sense of well-being. And that's been part of my awakening.
So my wife and I are expecting a child. It's our second. We have a daughter. We're very excited. But of course, having a child is an interesting thing to contemplate at any time, but particularly during an unprecedented pandemic. And 4 years ago, when my daughter was born, I underwent a pretty massive career change. I went full time as an actor for the first time ever, and that has been mildly terrifying the entire time, but it's been working out. Um, and then, of course, as our second is showing up, here comes another giant career change, which is that all careers are gone. Uh, I mean, not really, but sort of. I mean, sets are kind of a scary place right now. So I don't, and particularly with a pregnant wife, she's high risk for COVID. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, this has been a time where I just have spent more time with my family than ever, and it's been really kind of wonderful. And in the midst of all this fear, there's a lot of hope. I mean, what's more hopeful than having a child? And we love our first so much. She's absolutely wonderful, uh, and we just can't wait to meet him. And he's going to have an interesting introduction to the world.
When they first told us we were pivoting to distance learning, I had to get special permission to go back to my shop and retrieve the materials I needed to teach classes. It had been weeks. And when I first flipped the switch, I was hit by this Miss Havisham moment. We still had 2 shows hanging on the racks, one of them ready for dress rehearsal. On the table were the materials and supplies we had just purchased for projects we were about to begin. There was a costume on a dress form ready for her fitting. And we had scheduled guest artists to come in and work with us. Such potential, and all of it gone, stolen by COVID. And I still mourn the loss.
I'm blessed that I haven't been sick and my family hasn't been sick. But my thing is, COVID affects people in many different ways, and it's affected me personally, changed me personally. I've always been a performer, and when I was a young kid, like in high school, I created this one-man show that was about my grandfather, who was a civil rights activist. was all about walking in his shoes, figuratively. Like I would put his shoes on and I would experience, some of the things that he went through, because he went through a lot being an activist in a very small town that was really segregated when he was growing up, and he changed a lot of that. But you grow up and you kind of move away from things, and you kind of pave your own path, and sometimes it's not always the path that you thought you were going to be on. For example, I was walking in Denver downtown to this barbershop. I wanted to get my hair cut, and I couldn't because I didn't have a reservation. And as I walked out and walked back to my car, there was a protest going on. And I said to myself, why are you not over at that protest? This is what your grandfather taught you. This is what your life was revolved around when you were growing up. Your grandfather teaching you about standing up for your rights and standing up to injustices of others. And, when you're working and you're traveling and you're, trying to do a career, you don't have time sometimes. Or you make the excuse that you don't have time. But I got my butt over to that protest and I was energized. I was electrified by the chants and by the heart and the endurance of people that didn't even look like me, standing up for people who look like me. And I said, I have to change that. And you know what? Because of COVID-19, I can't travel as much and I'm not working right now. So I have no excuse. So I'm putting in my work personally, not just for my career, but I'm standing up for injustices of others, because who knows, man, I could be next. And that's real.
For most people, the common cold is just part of life, but for me, it's an obstacle. It's something I have to prepare for, it's something I have to work my life around. For most people, a cold lasts about a week. For me, it lasts a month or more. I start getting sick, which is about a week-long process. I am sick for 2, maybe more weeks, and then the recovery process is another week and a half or longer. This is something that challenges me every time I get sick. When I get sick, I can almost immediately identify who gave me the cold, because it's so immediate, but the recovery process is such a long and winded event. The concept of getting a deadly virus with my lack of immune system is terrifying to me. I see people who don't care about my health and refuse to wear masks, and it's a great big middle finger to me as a person. But a lack of immune system is the price that I willingly paid to have my brain tumor killed.
On my birthday, I always try to touch base with gratitude in my life. Things I'm grateful for, understanding the blessings I have. I might try to do it all year long, but the birthday is a good time to reflect on those things for me. 2020 has been a very difficult year to find gratitude in. Man. But one positive thing for me that's come out of this is, well, I'm an actor professionally for decades, and this is probably the first time in 35 years that I'm not hustling or thinking about what my next gig's going to be, or who my agent, should I call this, should I touch base with this producer, blah, 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 all the stuff that happens when I'm actively working in showbiz, and I just can't do that right now. It's not possible. And I'm finding some real comfort and peace in that, which might be telling in some ways. I just hope post all this stuff we're going through, I'll be able to continue feeling that, touching base with that peace and not getting too riled up in things, trying to find things, find work. But that being said, I mean, I'm sad and frustrated, angry at what I see and what's happening.
Being challenged with shelter in place has taught me how to be patient with myself. Before the lockdown, I was extremely motivated and feeling really creative, working on a lot of projects with other people and for myself. And then once quarantine started, I lost all of that motivation. And the first couple of months were really hard for me. I had a lot of self-doubt and negative emotions and didn't really know how to cope with them. I couldn't get myself to do anything, and I realized it was because I needed human connection. When I was put in a place where I couldn't have that, it made me feel uncomfortable. I never really knew that I needed that because I've always been embracing my solitude and I'm an independent person, but I really did need human connection. And since all I can do is be with myself right now and be alone, I have to be patient. And I know that being patient is what's going to get me through this. And eventually, I'll be able to create with a lot of people in real life again. And I'm really looking forward to that.
I've been having a lot of dreams about shape-shifting and becoming various animals and flying through the sky or swimming in the rivers and the jungles and just running and moving around the earth. Feel very trapped. Feel like I'm not fulfilling anything at all. I feel sad. I wish I was an eagle.
These unprecedented times were definitely challenging to adapt to at first. I was working a lot, like 5 jobs, didn't really take a day off, and I did not have a good work-life balance, if I'm being honest. And I find that a positive during this time is that it has taught me how to slow down. It has taught me to take a step back and just enjoy the small things in life and to find that balance again. And for me, that's been being, with my family and loved ones. That is getting back to nature and enjoying hikes, reading good books, meditating, and of course, working out at home when I can and creating my own workouts. And it's also given me time to study to become a personal trainer and look into maybe different passions and interests of mine. And as much as I miss some of my, day to day and my training, I do think this has been a great opportunity to grow and a great opportunity to realize just how important it is to take a step back and to appreciate the small things in life.
Without this virus that's gone around and scared everybody and made a lot of people sick, I would probably still be working full time, extra hours, overtime. My daughter would often go to my mom's for the weekend to babysit, and while my wife and I would go to work for as many extra hours as we can get, go home and rest for a little bit and go back to work again, just like everybody else in the world that's done. But now I'm at home with my daughter, and I wouldn't give it up. I'm going to have to, but I don't want to. It's great to see her develop and grow and learn, and to teach her things and instill those proper manners in her that many people just don't have anymore. And she's very kind and loving. It's a blessing to have her and my wife. Scary times are now, and a lot of people are being lost.
What I miss the most, I miss in-person auditions. I miss meeting the casting director fellow actors and actresses. I miss going to Comic Cons and meeting people with similar interests to mine. I miss meeting fellow cosplayers. I miss the magic meetings and meeting with other magicians. I miss performing magic. I miss performing in general. I just miss the way life used to be before the pandemic. I miss everything about the way life used to be.
The biggest thing I've learned from 2020 is that I have to be more fluid and adaptable in my career. My parents' generation, you would grow up, go to school, get a job, and hold that job for 20, 30, 40 years before retiring. My generation, what I've seen is people with a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of career paths that kind of subverge onto one personal brand. This pandemic ground everything I was doing to a halt. I work in fitness, which requires close personal contact. I work in events, which require mass gatherings, and as a performer, which as well require gatherings. And it looks like we're not going to get any of that, at least without fear, for the foreseeable future. And we also don't know if something like this is going to happen again. So while this pandemic has accelerated all of our use of the internet and kind of pushed our work towards more teleworking and more internet use and content consumption, I need to adapt or I'm going to get left behind.
I was basically staying at home for the last trimester, not doing anything. And then when it was time to go to the hospital, their policy was that everybody coming in had to get tested for COVID. So I was there in labor having contractions and getting the nasal swab for COVID, and it was negative. So I also feel very fortunate that I didn't get sick with it, because some hospitals are having a policy where if the mother tests positive, they want to separate mom and baby, and that's the last thing that mom wants to hear. They also had a policy of no visitors, and my support person, who was my husband, wasn't allowed to leave the floor once he came on with me. So we were both there for 3 days in the hospital, and we couldn't leave to visit with our toddler. And now that baby is here, it's even harder, because you have this newborn who basically doesn't have an immune system, and you're trying to protect them from a virus that we don't fully know how to protect people from. So the amount of decisions that parents have to make every day is pretty overwhelming. You have to decide if you're going to have visitors. If you are, when are they going to come over? Are you going to wait 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? Are you going to let visitors hold your baby? Are you going to have your visitors wear masks and PPE? Are you going to stay outside the whole time? If you have older kids, are you keeping them out of daycare? Are you keeping them out of school and you're going to homeschool? Are you limiting their activities so that they don't get sick and they don't bring the virus home and get everybody else sick? It's pretty overwhelming.
I'm talking about something that in Sanskrit is called Satsang. And what Satsang is it's the sharing of truth in the light of awareness. It expresses and encourages our impulse to live with one another in dignity, purity, and upliftment, to promote things such as love, peace, and unity. And many people out there, I believe, they're just very scared. And when they're very scared, they start thinking about how this pandemic has only affected their own personal life, how they've been personally inconvenienced. And it creates a very us versus them mentality. And that us versus them mentality creates anger, which leads to hostility, which we've seen a lot of. And it will continue as long as people have an us versus them mentality. This pandemic has affected us all as members of the human community, and it's not picking sides. Whether you're black or white, Republican, Democrat, American, European, it doesn't matter. And as a Satsang community, we shouldn't be, divided by race, by gender, or belief, but instead we should be working together to build a world without poverty, violence, and arrogance. And unfortunately, it's it's very crucial, especially in times like this, that the spirit of satsang needs to be brought to everybody's awareness, because until our egos, our petty differences, and our false perceptions are left at the door, we're never going to overcome these challenges that we're facing today.
Being a school teacher during the school closures in the spring was very difficult. I remember spending a lot of time and energy finding resources for my students to learn from home. And during one of the weekly calls I would make to parents, a mom asked me how I was doing. She asked me if I was healthy and if my family was healthy, and I remember that really struck out to me, because it showed me that they care about and they worried about me as their teacher just as much as I worried about and cared about them. And I hope that when we return to school, whenever we return to school, however we return to school, that we can continue to do that we can continue to focus on the emotional needs and social needs of our students, that we can continue to partner with our families to make sure that all of their needs are met, and that our families continue to partner with their teachers, with their schools and their districts as we all navigate returning to school during a global pandemic.
In times like these, to whom do we look for accurate and truthful information, leadership and inspiration? There's a terrifying lack of leadership being shown in the USA right now. Trump's not a leader, and he shows no compassion. His enablers, Fox News, GOP sycophants and Twitter, have no conscience. I've lived in Australia, the USA, Canada and Europe, during which time every president in my lifetime has felt they needed to speak of the USA as the greatest country in the world. This fantasy speaks of a comprehensive ignorance of the world outside. Ignorance is a crime, encouraging it is worse. Thus, this notion of American exceptionalism is a lie. Anyone who might try to bring about a better, fairer, more humane USA will be ruthlessly resisted. It will take an exceptional leader of the ilk of a Gandhi or a Mandela to make headway against these powerful and, yes, evil forces. I don't see one yet.
I think the biggest thing that I've taken from this is just realizing that I don't have control over anything, or at least the things that I thought that I had control over. And the more that I was trying to take control over these things, or keep going with the plans that I originally had for this year, the more stressed I was coming and the more anxious I was coming. And I realized that the biggest thing that I can do during 2020, until there's some semblance of normalcy, is just to take care of myself. So I've been journaling, I've been meditating, I've been drinking water, all things that I never did before. And it's been crazy to see how much of a relief it's been to just let go of these plans that I originally had for this year, and just really surround myself with things that make me feel good, continue to stay connected with people who make me feel good, and most importantly, just stay safe, keep myself safe, keep everyone who I care about safe. That's been my biggest thing that I've been able to take from 2020 in the midst of all of this craziness.
For the first time in my life, I feel fear. Not that movie watching kind of fear, but actual real fear. I've always believed I was invincible, invulnerable, and could always protect my son. Politics were just something that played out in the background. But now they're not. They're real, and they affect everything going on. I don't know how they intend to open schools safely. I don't know how much anxiety I will go through every day if I have to send him to school. I don't know whether distance learning works for him. It's been a very stressful 3 or 4 months, a lot has happened. A lot of people have revealed their true selves to me in ways that I never imagined. I don't know how we come out of this. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what the new normal is going to involve. And I think that's what scares me more than anything.
If there's anything I've learned from this year, so far at least, there's still much more to learn, is that the most powerful person in our lives is ourselves. We determine what our day is going to look like. Even if it seems negative, the negative can always be turned into a positive in our own minds. That being said, I've been focusing a lot on myself lately, and that's not a place of selfishness, it's a place of self-love. I feel like you can only really be powerful and strong for others and show love for others until you can do that for yourself. When it comes to how I see the world turning today, I remind myself, it's still going to turn tomorrow. It'll keep turning. But the person who's going to make a difference starts with us. Each one of us. And I believe that making sure that you're ready to help others has to start with helping yourself.
2019 was an absolute dumpster fire for me. When my mother passed away, the ensuing family drama, the work drama, my personal life drama just made the rest of the year horrible. And then in October, I was presented an opportunity to do something that I very dearly love, and I accepted. When I came out of that, I had a new focus. I had a new clarity, and I knew where I was going to go. And I could suddenly see my rainbow out beyond the edge of the oncoming storm. And I knew where to go. Well, in the next couple of months, I finished packing my house. I was already in the process of getting ready to move when all of this crap happened. And then COVID hit and quarantine hit, and suddenly everything came to a grinding, screeching halt. And I didn't know what to do, but I didn't freak out about it. And that really startled me. I didn't freak out from COVID. I just kind of knew we'd get beyond it, we'd heal past it, and we'll all grow from it. But in the meantime, I really went within who I am. I found I'm a lot more extroverted than I really gave myself credit for. I've started writing again and doing art again, and I've started streaming. I'm here in my studio, and online I'm reaching out to people, and I'm meeting people all over the world, and it's been terribly exciting, and I just love it. It's been absolutely amazing, and I'm really quite happy about it. I really am. I'm moving forward, and I'm very happy.
Don't mind the rain. It's gonna clear right up again. Oh, when the clouds go rolling by, a rainbow lights the sky, and all at one time there's a lot of sunshine. Don't complain, but always smile, keep smiling when it's raining. If you wanna have happy hours, you need showers just